Okay, let's dive into this. Artificial intelligence is literally dominating every single business conversation right now. Every company wants it, millions of dollars are being poured into it, and we are constantly hearing about its absolute massive potential. But beneath all that hype, well, there's a quiet crisis unfolding. In today's Explainer, we're going to look at some truly shocking statistics and essentially conduct an autopsy on corporate AI initiatives. We need to understand exactly why so many of these projects are just dying on the operating table.
Consider this first number. According to a major report by Gartner, at least 30% of generative AI projects are going to be completely abandoned after the proof of concept phase by the end of 2025. Just think about that for a second. Nearly a third of these highly funded, highly anticipated projects, they're just going to be quietly shut down.
But honestly, the reality on the ground might be even more severe. Data from S&P Global Market Intelligence shows that by mid-2025, a massive 42% of surveyed companies had actually already abandoned most of their AI initiatives.
And here is the absolute final blow. Research from MIT Sloan's Project Nanda found that a staggering 95% of generative AI pilots at companies saw zero measurable return on investment. Literally zero. Despite the incredible technological leaps we've all seen recently, translating that tech into actual, tangible business value is proving to be incredibly elusive.
So the crucial point is, to figure out why this keeps happening, we're synthesizing 8 authoritative reports into 5 core parts for today. 1. The AI reality check. 2. Solving the wrong problem. 3. The dirty work of data. 4. People, process, and politics. And finally, 5. How to succeed with AI.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the AI reality check, where we're diagnosing the sheer scale of the problem. And this brilliantly illustrates the escalation we're dealing with. Just consider the dramatic jump in the data from S&P Global. Back in 2024, only 17% of companies were abandoning their AI projects. Fast forward just one single year to 2025, and that number rocketed up to 42%. So why the sudden massive spike? Well, the report cites escalating deployment costs, super tricky data privacy issues, and totally unforeseen security risks as the main obstacles. Companies are basically finding out the hard way that scaling AI is a very, very different beast than just playing around with a sandbox prototype. To help us understand these failures, the RAND Corporation uses a pretty fascinating term: anti-patterns of AI. Essentially, these are common responses to recurring problems that end up being totally ineffective or even completely counterproductive. Basically, organizations just keep falling into the exact same traps, repeating these structural errors over and over again. So, what are these anti-patterns exactly? That brings us to Section 2, Solving the Wrong Problem, which is all about the leadership disconnect. You see, the primary cause of death for most of these AI initiatives isn't actually the AI technology itself. It's the massive disconnect between what leadership expects and what engineering actually executes. When we break down why these projects stall out, the data reveals 2 very distinct fronts contributing to the failure rate. On one side, we have top-down failures. This happens when executives demand AI just to chase industry buzzwords, or they totally overestimate what the tech can actually do, or they just severely underestimate the time it takes to build a custom model. But on the flip side, we have bottom-up failures. This is when data scientists and engineers get totally laser-focused on experimenting with the coolest, most cutting-edge new frameworks just to build up their resumes, instead of focusing on established tools that actually deliver business value. And the result? Well, in both cases, the actual focus on solving a real business problem gets completely lost. This entire dynamic creates what researchers call misaligned use cases. As noted by Rand, and honestly echoed across multiple other reports, the absolute most frequent path to failure is deploying this beautifully trained AI model that has been optimized for completely the wrong metrics. It's that classic trap, right? Starting with a shiny new technology that's desperately looking for a problem to solve, rather than starting with a rock-solid business problem that is actively seeking a solution. Let's move into Section 3, the dirty work of data, and look at infrastructure neglect. Because here's the reality. Even if you somehow identify the absolute perfect problem to solve, your AI is totally useless without the right infrastructure and data supporting it. Now, what's really interesting about this is an incredibly blunt quote from an experienced data scientist interviewed by Rand. They said, 80% of AI is the dirty work of data engineering. Data engineers are the plumbers of data science. Building AI-ready data pipelines just isn't glamorous. The data scientists who actually train the models, they get all the glory. Meanwhile, the data engineers are viewed as just doing the menial plumbing. And this massive lack of prestige is fundamentally harming corporate AI readiness across the board. If we really break down the major data-driven pitfalls, a recurring pattern emerges. Organizations will heavily invest in buying these expensive AI models, but they severely underinvest in the pipelines required to actually clean their data. And because data engineering lacks that prestige we just talked about, turnover in those roles is super high. So when those engineers inevitably leave, they take all that institutional knowledge of the data right out the door with them. Plus, companies often just assume that because they have decades of old compliance data, they're instantly ready for AI. But compliance logs totally lack the vital context you need to train a machine learning algorithm. Without subject matter experts, those crucial domain experts, to contextualize that legacy data, the AI is literally just going to learn the wrong patterns.
All right, Section 4. People, Process, and Politics. The Cultural Barrier.
Let's pretend for a second you have the right problem and you've magically cleaned all your data perfectly. AI projects still fail here, simply because of human friction points that end up stalling deployment. According to industry research from NTT Data, general employee concern regarding AI recently rose to 52%. That is more than half the workforce. When employees are genuinely terrified that AI is going to displace their jobs or lower their professional value, they put up this quiet, passive resistance. They might drag their feet when asked to provide that domain expertise, essentially stalling the project from the inside out. You see, AI failure is rarely purely technical. It's incredibly cultural.
And then, of course, there are the internal processes. Forcing AI development into standard corporate software workflows is a massive mistake. Rigid, agile software development is built specifically for predictable outcomes and really tight sprints. But AI? AI isn't predictable software engineering. It's much more like a science experiment. The initial phase of just exploring and cleaning data can take a completely unknown amount of time. So, if management forces AI engineers to fit their unpredictable data exploration into a rigid 1 to 4 week development schedule, they are quite literally setting the project up for failure before a single line of code is even written.
Let's move on and see how this builds into our final part, Section 5, How to Succeed with AI, our preventative medicine.
We've done the autopsy, we've seen all the anti-patterns, so now let's talk about some actionable solutions. Based on implementation frameworks from Harvard Business Review and the RAND Corporation, here is your 5-part roadmap to avoid becoming part of that 30% abandonment statistic. Step 1, bridge the gap. You have to ensure business leaders and technical staff are actually speaking the same language about what success looks like. Step 2, choose enduring problems. If an AI solution isn't worth committing a whole team to for at least a full year, it is simply not worth doing. Step 3, focus relentlessly on the business problem rather than just chasing the latest AI trend. Step 4, you've got to invest heavily in the unglamorous data plumbing and infrastructure upfront. And Step 5, acknowledge AI's limitations. It is not some magic wand that's going to instantly automate away every messy, subjective human process.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to wrap up our explainer today. I want you to look closely at the projects happening inside your own walls right now. Ask yourself, is your current AI initiative actually solving a long-term enduring business problem? Or is your organization simply spending millions of dollars just chasing the hype? Honestly, understanding the difference there is exactly what separates the 70% who succeed from the 30% who fail. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. Keep asking those hard questions, and I'll catch you on the next deep dive.